The following program is rated T for teen for the use of tools and materials that can be harmful to unsupervised usage. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, Mister Waugh here from Mister Waugh Media, and yes, that is my actual name. Here we are, Season 2, baby. We're about to start filming. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us in the first one. We're going to make this one even better. So right now, it's really early in the morning. I'm just waiting for a conference call with the CEO of the company. We're going to get some information out there. And actually, I think... Oh, here he is. Hang on one sec. Hey there. How's it going?
I think I got it here. All right, there we go. Hey, what's up? Jonathan Steelcock here, the CEO of Mister Waugh Media. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Mr. Steelcock. Thank you so much for taking the call.
Well, before you start thanking me, we gotta hold up a second here. We got a bit of a problem. Viewership has been down lately. I don't know why. It's become a bit of a problem, so we brought in this expert. Her name's Julia von Prudish Fiend, and she's a marketing specialist.
Hi there.
What's up? Look, your viewership is down. You're not relevant. You guys have run this into the ground.
I wouldn't say exactly into the ground.
What do you have to offer that nobody else does on the internet?
I mean, we do nice, clean content. They're great tutorial videos.
They're sometimes funny.
We got the skits that go into them.
Romance.
We got action scenes.
Tasteful eroticism.
Look, I don't think anybody wants to see Mr. Waugh in a bikini again.
I thought it went pretty well.
You have no appeal for women. Look, where are your viewers coming from? What draws them in? Where is your female audience? Where's this Mia in all this?
Well, you see, at the beginning of this whole global situation, she got really sick, so we put her into quarantine for her own good, own well-being. She's been in there for 2 months, getting some rest.
I mean, I guess that makes 2 months. Quarantine is supposed to be 2 weeks, you idiots.
Oh, fudge. I'll be right back.
No. Let me just, there we go.
I've been in here for weeks.
No hard feelings? Uh-oh.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mister Waugh Media. I'm Mia. For a while I was MIA, but now I'm here to stay. On today's episode, we're stepping up our game by making some intricate set pieces. In this case, swamp terrain, on a budget. Isn't that right, Adam?
I said I was sorry!
Let's get started.
You'd think sorry would mean something these days. Oh well, let's get on with this punishment. First off, we're going to start with a sheet of styrofoam board here, and it's going to be about 5 inches by 5 inches for this piece, but I'm going to make a variety of these. Once I've cut it in the loose circle shape, I'm going to start working on the edges, cutting at an angle. Make sure that your blade is nice and sharp.
Look, you're not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, are we?
Yes, Mia. Look, once you've rounded it out, we'll have a base that looks something like this. Then you're going to take your blade and carefully start cutting inward. You're going to want to try to make a shallow bowl shape in the middle of the piece. Now up to this point, I've experimented more with 2 to 4 inches for the pool size, and I find that works out pretty well. Anything larger and you're going to have to worry about inconsistencies and maybe bubbles in the water, which we'll talk about in a little bit. As you can see here, it's kind of a crude little area here. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. Most of this is going to get covered up anyways. Once that's out of the way, we're going to take a thin sheet of cardboard and we're going to trace along the outer edges. And this will give us a bit of a brace underneath, especially once we've thrown on the sand and the glue and all of the paint. It can warp the styrofoam. So this will just give it a little bit of a boost of stability. Once that's out of the way, we'll take the two pieces and fuse them together. My go-to is, of course, the hot glue gun, but you could use some white glue if you really wanted to. It'll just take a lot longer to dry, or you can even use super glue if you're feeling adventurous. We'll just sandwich the two pieces together like so, and voila, they are now one. Now I'm going to take my blade, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to go all the way down to the cardboard, just to give us a lot more depth to work with. Especially if you're going to use some stuff like a sunken log or some reed sticking out of it. It'll just give it a little bit more oomph, and it'll look really fantastic when it's all done. For the next step, we're going to take these plastic plants that I picked up from the dollar store for about $1.50. You can also find them at pet stores, of course, or some craft stores, but this one I found was a giant bundle of them for a really decent price. So it's usually a string of plants that are sort of glued together, so I'm having to cut them into individual plants, and they look something like, almost like a Jurassic plant, something that's venomous.
Oh, venomous. Like a certain coworker I know.
Look, I've said 1,000,000 times, we were just trying to protect the world from you being sick. Let it go. Jeez. Oh, and make sure you glue the plants into place with a hot glue gun, like so. For the next step, we're going to slather the entire piece with white glue. Make sure you get it all the way around the edges and deep inside the pool area where the ooze is going to get poured. Swamp water's like ooze, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Now you're going to cover the entire thing with some sand. Relatively straightforward. Voila, we're done. Brilliant. Because this has been such a simple build, in fact, we're actually done, we just need to paint the thing now, I decided I wanted to build something a little bit bigger. That's the beauty of these swamp pieces, is that you can have them as small areas with maybe a couple plants that could be light terrain, all the way into a larger piece, like this one, which is going to have an extra layer. I'm going to build a little structure on top of it, and it'll have multiple pools of ooze swamp water. So, same principle as before, we're going to take our styrofoam sheet here. Now this one is obviously a little bit bigger. I think this one clocked in around about 9 inches long and about 5 inches wide. But same principle as before, chop at the angle here around the edges. Once that's out of the way, we're going to take our little cardboard sheet here and trace around the edges just to give it some support. Especially for something of this size, once the glue and paint gets on there, it is going to start warping. So we need to have a little bit more stability. In hindsight of this episode, I probably should have put a second layer down just to give it a little bit of extra boost, but that is the beauty of post-edit.
Oh, incompetency, you mean?
Wow, someone's bitter. Alright, as you can see here, I'm going to take the styrofoam and crack it just a little bit inward. That way it's not going to warp quite as bad. Once I'm done that, I'm going to hot glue gun the piece to the base once again and sandwich it in there nice and firm. Now I'm going to take a second piece here and mount it on top. This one's only going to be about 2.5 by maybe 3 or 4 inches long. I don't want it to be too invasive on this piece. I just want it to give it a little bit of a boost, especially with the structure sitting on there, but not enough to dominate the entire piece. So I'll once again round out the edges here, and once that's done, we'll mount it firmly in place with the glue gun. This one also is going to get a light cracking in the middle here, that way it doesn't warp from the glue and the paint. And once I've decided where it's going to go, we're going to bolt it down with the glue, like so. For the next step, we need to decide where the bodies of water are going to rest. Obviously, I've left a little bit of an area at the very bottom here completely open, and that's where I'll put my first pool, which is going to be about 2 to 3 inches wide. Now this one, I've decided I want to have a log half submerged into the swamp water. For one, it's going to look really cool, and two, it kind of breaks up just an open area. For the second pool, however, I wanted to go even more intricate. I decided I'm going to carve the second one at the base of the hill, right where the voodoo witch hut's going to rest. And this one's going to be interesting because I want the legs of the structure to be coming out of the swamp water, just to really give it a cool visual look. And I'll be careful not to cut through the edge of the piece, but overall, I think I'm pretty satisfied with my pool placement. We're going to start harvesting from our hobby garden here, that I like to call my bits box, and grab some more of those plant pieces. This larger structure is probably going to have about 4 or 5 different plants, and I'm even make some that are a little bit bigger, just to break it up a little bit. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this on the first piece, but usually what I like to do is dig a slightly shallow, maybe half a centimeter deep hole, fill it with hot glue, and then place the plant firmly in there. This is actually surprisingly durable, and trust me, these plants aren't going anywhere. Alright, you know the drill. We're going to copy and paste here. We're going to slather the entire thing in white glue and then sand. And you're thinking, this seems really straightforward. Like, how is this going to turn out? That's the whole beauty of this build. It's relatively straightforward. It's only a handful of steps, and it costs $10 for all of the resources. And that's not just to build a single piece. No, $10 buys you enough to build a dozen. Depending on how big you build them, you could probably even get more. That's what is so great about this, is you can crank out something like this in an afternoon and cover the entire table by nightfall. Alright folks, now the construction's out of the way, we're going to move on to the painting segment. And this is going to be primed as usual with some generic black acrylic paint that I use in most of my videos. Costs about $1.50, and this stuff goes a long way. Make sure you slap it on there really thick. We want to make sure we get into all the nooks and crannies. After giving the piece ample time to completely dry, we're going to go back in and start brushing on some generic brown across the entire surface. Now, it's not quite a dry brush because we want it to cover the majority of the surface, but we do want a little bit of the black to poke through. We're going to do some interesting things with that a little bit later on. And don't worry if you do get it on the plants, it's no big deal. These will be completely covered later on. Next up, we're going to take 1 part brown and 1 part golden yellow to make a light sand color. And we're going to dry brush this across almost the entire surface. Any areas where there still is a little bit of the black poking through, I'm only going to give a light dusting to. Like I said, we'll work with that a little bit later on, but you can still see where there are these dark patches. That is intentional. If you do accidentally go over them, don't worry about it too much, but you'll notice a difference later on when we get to the later steps. For the next step, we're going to take that golden yellow color that we previously had and add just a little bit of white to the mix. This is going to get a light dry brushing across the entire surface, once again avoiding the areas that are a little bit darker, but don't worry too much if you do. We're now going to work on the area that we previously had left a little bit darker, taking 1 part black and 1 part white to make a medium gray color. We'll use our brush almost like a sponge and start making blotches across the entire surface, starting with those darker areas and working our way out. This next step is going to be relatively quick. We're just going to take 2 parts white and 1 part black to make a light gray color, and dry brush that across all the previous areas we just painted. Like so. We're now going to start working on the plants themselves, and we're going to use a paint called Castelian Green by Citadel. For all intents and purposes, it's just a darker olive color, and we'll apply a very generous coat across the entire plant piece. Oh, and just remember that plants have 2 sides. There's like the outside and the inner leaves. So, yeah, just make sure you get it all over. Mia's staring at me. Once that's out of the way, we're going to go in with some Lauren Forest, also from Citadel, which kind of looks like a bunch of smashed up peas. And we want to take the paint about 1/3 of the way down the leaves. What this is going to do is leave the other green behind to give sort of a natural shadow, and leaving this lighter paint on the top to give it sort of a sun-kissed look. Once all the painting is done, it's time to apply a layer of flock. We're going to lay down some white glue across the surface in little random patches, and then apply our flock. Make sure you press down on it a little bit, otherwise if you sprinkle it on there, it doesn't always stick to the surface properly. So you just want to make sure you have maximum adhesiveness. Once that's out of the way, you're going to have a base that looks something like this. Now I'm going to add a few more detail pieces. From Army Painter, we get these little cool tufts of grass and weeds. They go for about $9, so that goes above our budget of $10 build. But these are, for all intents and purposes, just a little bit of bling that I'm adding to it. You don't have to do this, I just think it makes it pop out that much more. But certainly does not need to be part of the budget. While the plants do certainly stand out, I feel like I need a little bit of eye candy to really make this whole thing pop. So I fabricated a crude plank walkway out of some coffee stir sticks, and then I just gave it a couple shades of gray on there to make a nice contrast between it and the swamp around it. You can also check out my video for wooden planks above to get some other ideas for different color schemes. It's now time to reveal my secret for affordable water effects. Elmer's Clear Glue. Most water effects out there cost about $44 for a tube. This stuff was $1.50 at the dollar store. Now, all you gotta do is just smear a whole bunch of it inside the pit that we carved out, and make sure you spread it evenly across the surface. Now, the only downside to this build is that it takes quite a while for each layer to fully dry, so I usually do one first thing in the morning, and a second just before I go to bed at night. That way, over several days, it builds up several layers, giving us a nice, deep, detailed pool of water. But let's be real, no body of water will remain clear for very long in a swamp area, so it's time to muddy everything up. I've taken different shades of green and brown, I'm mixing them together in a red throwaway cup that I chopped down so I could use as sort of a mixing bowl. Once I've got the color down to what I want, I'm going to start adding the Elmer's glue. Now make sure you don't get anything on your paintbrush here. You want to make sure that's protected because otherwise it's going to gum it all up. But I'm going to take a popsicle stick here and just start mixing it all together so it becomes a nice ooze. Oh yeah, let's add some more glue. Yeah. Ooze. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. Now we're going to pour. Ooze. I'll try to be more professional here. But something I'm noticing in post-production is it's not quite the consistency I would have liked. You can still see through it, but it's not quite as transparent as I would have liked. It's like peering through a layer of algae, whereas if I did the right consistency, you'd actually see all the way down to the bottom through all the previous layers. But still, this looks cool. Now I waited an entire day for everything to fully dry before going in with one last coat of Elmer's glue to seal everything in. Now here's an important tip about timing. I didn't wait long enough before I applied the algae layer, so some of the layers underneath hadn't fully dried. Think of it as soap and grease and that effect that it has. Same principle here. Now the imperfections are minor, you don't really notice them, but if you want to avoid this headache, just give lots of time for everything to fully dry. But that said and done, we are now finished this project, and this is what the pieces look like when they're done. I built probably about a dozen of these from the supplies that I had. I like this one with the half-submerged planks. They're deep inside the water there. That turned out really cool. I did the same with this other one here. It's got sort of a dock that's half in the swamp, half out of it. There's a tree that's actually submerged inside the water. You can actually see through it. And overall, this project took very little time, inexpensive, and it looks great. Well, that's been today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, maybe found some useful information in there.
And if you did, give us a like, share, and subscribe. And if there's anything you want us to build, let us know down in the comments, and we'll see what we can do.
It's because of people like you that we're actually able to do this. And going into the second season, we're sitting at 3,000 views.
3,000 views.
We've had 18,000 eyeballs, which means people are seeing us in their Facebook feed, their YouTube algorithms, and definitely spreading. We've been shown in the UK, down in the States, and it's because of people like you that we're actually getting out there.
Thank you so much for everything you guys have done so far.
We really appreciate everything, all the positive feedback that we've gotten from all of you. It's really been amazing. So on that note, I've been Mr. Waugh from Mister Waugh Media.
And I'm Mia. I was MIA, but now I'm here to stay.
Exactly. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Am I
here for a reason? Sometimes I wonder why. Am I here for a reason, or is life just passing by? Someone please tell me. I need